All right, welcome everyone to the Thursday, March 6th meeting of the City Council Business and Community Affairs Committee. Today we have two items on our agenda, the first being a report on special events, attendance, and visitors. And like every month, I believe staff has a presentation for us, so I'll go ahead and turn it over to you guys.
Perfect. You've noticed we haven't done this in a while. We decided to do it quarterly. That way we can get more accurate information, give us a chance for Dan to compile financial situations if he can, spending, if he can, it makes it easier for him to come up with that. So we're cutting back to quarterly. So you'll see 4 of these a year. And today we're going to catch up on the football season that we had. So we saw that football picture, ignore the Big 12 logo on that field. One of these days I'm going to learn how to Photoshop and then we can take that out. So when you start talking about exactly what we're going to look at, of course, the city uses Placer AI, so we're able to go on there and track some cell phone data of people coming through town. That first line, that first box you see with starting out at 2.85 million, kind of peaking at 3.38 million. These are just people that are either visiting, coming into town, visiting on a monthly basis. Sometimes too, it depends on the traffic, especially on those football game weekends. Sometimes if you get caught on the highway, even though you're not stopping in town, anybody that stops in here or is in that blue circle longer than 10 minutes will get picked up on the cell phone data. Your employee line right there is basically your employee rate, how many people are actually working inside that blue area. That does count people if you are living in that blue area. So that's just counting how many people are working inside this area on a monthly basis. And you can kind of see that goes up and down a little bit as well. Pretty much around 2.4 million on a monthly basis. So if you go back and look at our year of major events and festivals inside the city of Norman, these are our numbers that we came up with according to Placer AI. Good place to start. So always that Medieval Fair, we had about 91,000 last year. And of course, we have that coming up next month. Earth Day 2000, Norman Music Festival, even though they missed one day, about 42,000. And it's a little bit deceiving when you look at that Saturday, because I don't think they played music at all on that Saturday, because we had high storm threats the whole day. Pride Festival at 2,600. Mayfair, which has made a comeback recently, no longer Andrews Park, which breaks the parks director's heart, but I understand. About 11,000 through there. Jazz in June, still at Andrews Park, 6,300. Juneteenth, 2,300. 8,300 for Fourth Fest, a little bit lower and last year. Also lightning and all day. We actually made the news during that national news because we set off fireworks right in the middle of lightning in the sky.
We got beautiful, which was awesome.
It was pretty cool. It was really cool. Porch Fest, 1,000. Brewtoberfest, one of our newer events we do in the park, which highlights our local breweries in town. 1,800. Fall Fest, which is always a big hit. The number you want to focus on there is the after 5 o'clock, which is about 10,000. And then Winterfest, we look at that. That's 1,800. So when Sarah measured this, she only did 250 feet around the tree, so we didn't get a full measurement of everybody that was necessarily there for the Christmas parade. But that is everybody that came near the tree for the Parks and Recreation event that we had over there in downtown. Big success. We're going to continue that in upcoming years and try to build off of what we built with that new tree that we have down there. We also hit our Norman Ford sites once every time we do this, and you can see that big peak last year you see right there is at Reeves Park. That was the Medieval Fair that's showing up. The blue line is pretty consistent to kind of match up with the soccer season out at Griffin. Of course, when you start looking at Westwood Family Aquatic Center, you got that big point right up there, right in the middle of summer. And then the yellow line with the Young Family Athletic Center that progressively got high right before we started summer. That pretty much does follow our trends on basketball season. And once school starts, all those in football and your new fall sports, when they start, they're pretty much all outdoor, and that's where you see the dip towards the end of the year, and it progressively goes back up to YFAC as we enter winter and before we get to summer to cover all those indoor sports. Griffin Park, kind of looking back on the last half of the year out there. May, of course, they have soccer during that time. Spring edition of soccer, about 2,600, and then again you'll see another high number when they had that fall, about 60,000. So same time that we had the Fury Run this past weekend, we had that event. Not only did we have that event going on, we also had they call it's a big soccer event. I think it's Norman. What do they call it? Norman Cup?
Yeah, it used to be the classic Celtic Cup or Celtic Cup.
Well, anyways, they had a tournament out at Griffin. NYSA runs on a yearly basis, had over 200 teams out there this week. So if you were over there by Griffin Park, I'm pretty sure that you noticed the traffic and the field's pretty full. Reese Park, just give me a little bit of data of it happened there towards the end of the year, going into the end of the year. You see that little spikes in October. Those were baseball tournaments out there at Reeves. And you get to a certain point, kind of gets cold, and other sports start. So you kind of see that dive, and we're about ready to start all the fun stuff between festivals and baseball. Hit that reset button real quick here pretty quick. Soon. Young Family Athletic Center, last few months out there. Once again, once school starts, that's when you see your low out there. There's not hardly any basketball tournaments or volleyball tournaments. You're seeing more of your fall sports is starting right there, which is a lot of definitely some soccer, which is still the youth sports king out here, and football going on. Westwood Family Aquatic Center, past few months, you see those high numbers. June is our prime month. Every single year that we have out there, about 43,000 visitors. What's cool is too, you kind of go out to the right, and I think we'll see these numbers, the percentage of people from Norman. I think you'll actually see those numbers decrease this upcoming year, because Oklahoma City Parks has already announced that they're not opening any of their pools. So it'll be interesting to see if we get a little bit more traffic from Oklahoma City. But focus on that, and you can actually see what an economic driver this is, because you do have people that are driving in from other communities to visit Westwood Family Aquatic Center, and pretty consistent, about 125, 130,000 people will show up out there during a swim season.
Jason, real quick, we got a couple questions. Councilman Allman first.
Just why are they not opening their pools is one. And then I guess also I saw there was a budget request for some additional stuff at Westwood Pool. So yeah, what's the deal with their pools?
So the Oklahoma City, it's just they are cutting back some of their staff due to financial conditions out there. So a lot of park staff out there is getting laid off. They have older pools. They have not built a new pool, I would say, in the past 20 years. So there's a lot of antiquated pools. They have problems hiring a lifeguard. I just think when you put all that up, that is one of those things when they're seeing that the economy is very stagnant. It's probably that's one of the ones where you don't have a whole lot of revenue. You're losing a lot of money out of there. That's probably one of the cuts they just made for this upcoming year. When you see the request that comes from Westwood, that actually goes back to Steve Lewis when he was city manager. His theory is that he wanted to keep the pool kind of modern and updated. Every 3 or 4 years, put a new amenity in there. So we've just been requesting that pretty much every single year. And we're either looking, what was initially set up when the pool was built, we do have a couple open areas for expansions where you can it's already built into our pump rooms. We already have underground plumbing there. So all we have to do is basically buy a feature. And that is on what would be the north side of the lap pool out there at Westwood. Whenever we're ready for it, it could either be a drop slide was what was initially visioned over there. We have talked about a surf machine. They've become popular. It's also a way to drive a little bit extra revenue because you can charge additional for you to go out there and use the surf machine. It's just something that's kind of been there, a placeholder and constant since we opened up the pool, just talking about future expansions. And it probably makes a lot more sense to wait for a Norm 4.2 or a different bond issue to do something like that.
So, but our our pool continues to be real popular. I assume the
Yeah.
station and more continues to be
Yeah.
popular, but
And that's
maybe not
part
a
of
big city, I guess.
that's part of the problem when you start looking at Oklahoma City. You got 2 new pools on the south side of the city. You also have Edmond, which isn't even that pool's I think 15 years old. It's still newer than the Oklahoma City pools, and it has more features than what the traditional. If you go back and think of Westwood, it was the long rectangular pool with not a whole lot of shade. Some slides in there, and that's kind of when you start talking about Early Wine and some of their
So
what's in
let's say,
park slide.
Is Early One
parks.
not a city park, I guess? That's
No.
a pretty big water park.
I think that is
If it's not open, I could see a lot of people.
that one
coming
might be
down.
operated by the Y, but there used to be an older pool out there, and that might have been updated and given to the Y.
Okay.
I'm sure it's related to the Okana opening up as well, you know,
Yeah.
big old water resort right there in the middle of the city. So Councilmember Grant, did you have a question as well?
So I was gonna say the Adult Swim, that's what I'm calling it. That happens once in the summer or several times?
We usually try to do it once a month during the summer.
So, and that one did have, we determined from previous discussions, a lot of people coming out of
Yes.
town.
Yeah. It's a super popular event. We usually have anywhere between 500 to 700 people to show up for it. I think we open up the doors for about 3 hours.
What's the capacity? Like, what's,
Any given time, you can have up to 720 people inside.
so we're maxing it out before OKC closed down pools,
Mhm.
okay. Good to know, thank you.
Hopping into shopping districts real quick. We kind of review this every single time. And if you have questions, might be better if Sarah answers those. But that top line you always see is the UMP, or University Town Center as it's referred right here. The green line, which you see jumping in the fall, is correlating with football season. That is Campus Corner. And then I believe that red line is downtown. So those are our 3 big shopping centers. And let's see, I'm trying to squint my eyes and look over there at the same time. Just noticing my vision isn't as good as it was a few months ago. Then you got the West Lindsay Shopping Center. Maybe that's that pink line that's running right through there. A little bit easier to see is if you break it down this way, it actually gives you the numbers and total visits. A little bit over 1 million at UMP, Sooner Mall, about 270,000. Was this for the month?
This is December.
For December.
Would explain them all.
And downtown Norman, a little bit over 200,000. Campus Corner, 180,000. So this is a good breakdown, especially when you're looking at December, where everybody's going to shop for the holidays and all that good stuff. Okay, we're gonna hop in a little bit into the football season. I know the last time we did this, last November, that this was the big question. So when we work with our Placer AI, this is the area that Sarah draws that we collect data around. So this is the first one when you talk about actual daily visits. These are all of our football games listed. The very first one that we had was on a Friday. Then you look at the other ones. I think that third one was Parents Weekend with Tulane, which is actually the highest number of people that came into town. And that lower ones when we played Maine, and of course it's a lower tier opponent. Along with I think it was cold and rainy that weekend as well. So that's kind of messed with that attendance. And that last number, which is the second highest, is when we beat Alabama. So I don't think that you can say that enough times. So I might refer to that every time that we talk about Alabama.
Councilmember Holden.
Maybe I missed it, but is there that same thing but compared to, same chart but compared to the last season? Or the previous 2 seasons?
Yeah, I don't think that we pulled that info out, but we probably can get that info pulled out and sent to you guys.
Because like, so Tennessee brought in more fans perhaps, but Maine would have brought in less fans than whoever we played at home, Kansas or something.
So I don't think in the information that we pulled this time didn't actually trace. I know we did that one time, didn't trace where they were coming from. We were just kind of looking at the total attendance that was in that highlighted area from
And
that
that's
first one.
more than just people in the stadium, right?
That
Yes.
is just the stadium.
That's just
That's the stadium.
Well, that's the footprint that you drew around the stadium, right?
footprint
So
around the
it's
stadium.
Correct, it would be that area right there.
The stadium.
Okay, okay. It's hard to tell. I mean, it looks like it's a
Yeah.
little bigger.
So, but I think a lot of people have asked or wondered if first season in the SEC hasn't really resulted in more fans in Norman for football season than in the Big 12.
So, and I think Dan might answer some of those questions, and I think the better question is that you only can, or answer is, you only can fit so many people inside that stadium. Stadium
Sure.
did increase. Now, as you start looking at hotels or the spending that was produced from those games would probably be a better story to
That's what
tell
I'd be more
than
looking for,
than
is
the
how many
actual
visitors
amount of
to
people.
Norman that
Yeah.
this football season compared to last, because I do know that some of the bigger schools do travel a lot more than the old Big 12 schools, and a lot of those fans may be traveling to Norman but not actually going to the games. So yeah,
So I'm finalizing that information as well. I'm happy to send it on to all of you as we're looking. I've got just about every game done but Alabama, so that'll be the last one on. I'll send that on to you.
okay, thank you.
So this is a visitor trend. This is actually people coming into Norman, and this tracks where they were on game day. Of course, the black number is the amount of people, or that black line that's up on top is how many people are in Norman. And then you start looking at the blue one that sharply points up that correlates with those is the stadium. And then you have the other lines like the UMP is that yellow lines very next. And then if you look at that pink line, which actually is a little bit below on most areas, spikes up above the UMP on game days. And we went ahead and attached which games are correlated with all that. And you can kind of see that Alabama, Tulane, Tennessee, Temple were all virtually around the same number of people that came to town. This one is actually, and I think someone requested this one. This is actually has Gaylord Family Stadium in there, but also shows where other people were, what other towns did during the same time. So you can see the spikes are still in Norman, still at Gaylord Family Stadium at the football stadium, but everything else pretty much stayed the same or stayed at its normal rate. So it's not really a huge blip for any of the other cities in the southern part of Oklahoma City. We didn't include Oklahoma City in this one, but besides Norman.
Councilmember Hinkle.
That was gonna be my question is, are we still compiling data? Are we gonna be able to get the data from Oklahoma City that compares to this? I
So,
thought that
yeah,
was-
so I can pull the data for any time period at any time. But Oklahoma City is such a big region, that it's not really gonna tell us much. To pull the whole region, we could probably zoom in on certain parts of town, but then you also have to cross-reference that with other events that might be going on in different parts of the city. It's not gonna show you a whole lot of really useful stuff.
I thought that was what we had discussed with the traffic patterns and stuff, being able to see people coming into Norman.
So we can, you're talking about kind of what we showed to the board with those heat maps and the starbursts and things. I get, I think 5 of those included per year. So we did one for Tennessee. We're gonna do one for Medieval Fair, Norman Music Festival. But if there are certain games or other things you guys would like to see, then we can track that,
I think that's
Josh.
what we asked last time, was to be able to at least show the Tennessee, South Carolina, and Alabama games where maybe we didn't have the hotel capacity to support the visitors. To see what kind of breakage revenue was happening from those visitors staying in Oklahoma City. So that was why we had added Noble and some of the surrounding communities, but really the only one, maybe 2 in that are really have the infrastructure to support any tourism would be, Moore, a couple hotels, and Purcell has 1 or 2. But I think that I know Oklahoma City saw a big uptick in people coming and staying there.
They do, yes.
So that's really the data that I want to capture from what we're looking here, because that's what people are asking.
Sarah, can you run Oklahoma City with Placer? I know that's not
I mean,
included.
it doesn't have to be the entirety of Oklahoma City, but if we look at the hot spots where there's lots of hotels like Bricktown and
I think for me, yeah, the idea is we want to see what kind of leakage we're losing to Oklahoma City and what kind of capacity do we have for additional hotel rooms? If we're losing 1,000 hotel rooms on game days to Oklahoma City,
And-
we need to build 1,000 hotel rooms.
And I think we can pull the data. I just think that when you start talking about Oklahoma City and they have so much every single weekend, I think Sarah's just saying it's going to be hard to track what was OU football or related to OU football and related and not related to it. Like, I mean, they have concerts or conventions and all that stuff. It's just that when you start looking at that, it's going to kind of look like that more number, but way up taller, and it
seem
hits
like
the
we
peaks on the weekends.
Cross-reference that data from maybe those hot points of those areas and show where the traffic patterns were to kind of correlate
we
give us a
definitely try
rough
that.
number.
I'm thinking you could even, you just do a boundary around downtown Oklahoma City, and then for the Alabama game, everybody in downtown Oklahoma City that came from Alabama, I mean, they're clearly here for the football game. Just being able to capture who came from where on that day, so Councilman Green.
I wanted to ask Sarah how Placer works and if that is even a function you could get out of that, tracking the cell phones that came in and out of them.
Sort of, but not in that way exactly.
You can't do all the tricks, come on.
I can't do everything. No, I mean, I can dig a little deeper, but I kind of had that conversation with my Placer rep, and I can tell where people are going before and after they visit the stadium. That's kind of about it. I can't say, like, say they came from Oklahoma City, maybe stopped somewhere for lunch, somewhere in the metro, and then went to the stadium. I can only see that immediate before or after, not where they came from that morning. I can't see their whole journey for the day, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily trace individuals.
Right,
Are there
right.
other ways to find out from partnerships in OKC who might be looking for football games?
Probably more of a Dan question.
Yeah, I mean, I get that information anecdotally, which is less helpful from my visit to OKC counterparts and just the number of Tennessee or Alabama fans that they have down in their districts. We also partnered with the Starburst graphic that kind of showed the traffic patterns. It didn't give me total numbers, but showed, that lit up like a Christmas tree I-35 before and after as it went to that. But that was an agreement for that one game that they let us do. So I bet they would work on a game-by-game basis with us, but I would have to ask them for that. It's unlike Placer, I think, for mine with Zardico. The agreement is just they give us the city limits. Now, Visit OKC is also a Zardico partner, but their data and our data, as much as I ask them to, they don't include that for either of us. And so we can partner and try and get some of that for you, though.
Yeah,
So
wasn't
I'll work
there
on it.
attempts to also work with OKC hoteliers, knowing that we can't have everybody here all at once sometimes?
Work with them how?
Trying to say, would you book, hotels for games or whatever?
Oh, getting the data from the hotels directly? We could try the hotels are usually pretty guarded with their information, whether it's conference info or other stuff. They just still are of the mindset that those are our folks and we're not gonna share that data. But we can reach out and ask, and maybe Zach with my counterpart at Visit OKC, they might share that on a kind of aggregate basis versus not. So let me make some calls and see what we can do. There's got to be a way we can get something for it.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, so my personal opinion, I think this is enough information to drive most of that from, because we see spikes, the consistent spikes. We can chalk up to either being events and more, weekly events, more monthly, whatever the frequency is on that. But then the large spikes for our games, we're not seeing that translate into more. Moore's not having larger spikes on that particular day, so that influencing factors and present in Moore's little ripples. Now it's possible that Moore's ripples, some percentage of that are people that are attending things in Norman. And I think if we saw Oklahoma City data, it'd probably be generally the same. We'd see spikes, periodic spikes like that, but without the larger spikes on game days. And again, there might be a percentage that are there buried under a sea of people that are there for Oklahoma City events, and then we've got a signal to noise ratio trying to pull that small number out. But the big telling factor here for me is just the we're not seeing those larger spikes on game days translating into any of the other cities. And that's kind of telling me that those are fairly unique to here, and there's not a lot of influence on their patterns.
We just don't have the infrastructure to support it. If there's a motel in Newcastle that fills up for the Alabama game, that might be the only time that hotel fills up. Or motel or
Yeah,
whatever.
but apparently Newcastle's not seeing any overflow.
No, and I really don't expect Newcastle and Goldsby and Noble and, you know, those cities don't have the infrastructure to support tourism or even a focus on it.
Yeah. But if there was going to be any spillage from our events into neighboring cities, we'd see it in Moore or Noble, and I'm not seeing any.
But again, they don't have Moore has 2 hotels, maybe 3. They have less than 100 rooms.
More, no, I think they're up to between 300 and 400 rooms now, but I think where you would see the impact for them, because there is such limited supply for those smaller areas, if we change this chart from visits to ADR, average daily rate, then I think you would probably see some correlation as the rates are demand, you know, that's driven by demand for OU football. So I would guess that you see ADR correlate maybe a little bit more closely versus visits, just because they don't have enough inventory.
So is this going by hotel stays?
This is
This is just people coming into Norman. This is, doesn't show shopping patterns, doesn't show anything. This is actually people that enter into that very first blue box that we put up on the screen.
Gotcha.
Kind of breaking down a little metrics here. So, and by game, this shows the visits into town, correlating with the games. I did put the teams that were visiting on the very top. And once again, Tulane had the highest number, but that was Parents Weekend. And I think the past few years that we've looked at, and that's pretty correlating with every single, no matter who you play, you're the largest number of the season is always on Parents Weekend. And then your next 2 biggest visits was Tennessee, Alabama.
So I got a quick question. Are these unique visits or does this include Norman residents? Because the stadium only fits 85,000 people, so.
This is just in the stadium, so nobody lives in the stadium, I don't think.
Right.
So this
That
really
include
is.
Norman citizens then, I guess?
Yes,
Okay.
this is in the stadium.
Okay.
So there's gonna, so that's gonna get anyone that's coming in and setting stuff up, not just people attending the game, people
Gotcha.
working in the stadium that day.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay. Thank you. Councilman Holman.
So if I walk from my neighborhood to Campus Corner, I have to walk past the stadium, so my cell phone would be included in
If you go
that?
in that boundary,
Yeah.
yes. If you're outside that boundary, no, and you have to be in within a certain period of time,
Does it do duplicates? If I walk through the boundary twice, does it count me as 2 people?
yes. And so that's the difference between visits and visitors.
Gotcha.
It should be really similar, because I don't think the stadium allows you to go in and go back out again.
Gotcha.
So they're the same.
Okay.
If you looked at like a different area, different time period, that visit number, and then like 4 or 5 down the visitors, it's gonna be the same in the.
Gotcha. And that's actually inside the stadium now, so you could, yeah, I see, okay, I see now. Yeah, okay, thank you.
Then you look at dwell time. I want to point this out because we're one of the ones that left early because my son was crying at South Carolina when they jumped up 21-0 in 3 minutes. So you can notice that one's a little bit shorter. Not to bring back any bad memories for anybody.
I've already suppressed that trauma.
What was Norman up to on the graph, the slide before this, on Alabama?
About 200,000 total people were in Norman on that date.
Okay, so that's Norman, and the next one's the,
Within the footprint of the stadium.
That red line is within the footprint of that very first blue box or that we showed, so in the footprint of Norman city boundaries. The blue one you see down there is the stadium. That's the separate spikes. So that kind of correlates around that 100,000 number that you see right there at the top. Demographics of people coming in according to game. Nothing a whole lot telling. It's pretty much within a few dollars and percentage points on every single game. I think that wraps up our portion of it. And any questions for me or Sarah, and we can throw it off to Dan.
Ready?
Right.
Okay, I'll dig right in. So, the end button.
The end.
Okay,
Yeah,
there we go.
Well, it doesn't actually end.
Would have done that wrong. Yeah, so we looked at October 1st through December 31st of 2024. So last quarter, and as I said, our data, similar platform to Sarah's, the city's Placer AI. Ours is through Zartico, which is a little bit more tourism related, and we have certainly the cell phone data, but also some spend data as well. So looking here, we just kind of wanted to look at who Norman's visitors were, their spending habits, movement within the boundaries of the city, to help us kind of figure out how we're marketing and bringing those in. So the percent of devices over the last quarter that are attributed to visitors. And visitors, you'll recall, I say this every time, but the way that Zartico does this, it's a 50-mile outside of Norman radius. So we're not capturing the local moors and other, even though that's new money to the community if they come. These, for us, we're wanting really those true visitors. And so that was a 39% increase from the previous year over this same time period, which I think equates to the question of football games and what's that doing. I think we're getting more out of town visitors. Those SEC fans are traveling more, which means we're having less metro traffic. We also have these new venues with YFAC and others coming in, and more tournaments and things coming in as well. So the total spend or percentage of spend from visitors was 10%. This was the same as the same time period last year. But what's really cool is the percentage or share of visitors that spend at local businesses. We saw a 6% increase there from last year. But we know the visitors, when they come, really like to go to our unique and locally Norman places. So impact on the local economy from visitors, 10% of overall spend from visitors. And we know December's kind of a slow month for us, no football games, students are leaving. But we catch October, November, which are typically kind of a little bit higher. 12% share of restaurant spend came from visitors. 10% share of retail spend came from visitors, and 13% attraction spend. And you can see below those the average dollar spent, $76 on average at restaurants, $120 on retail spend, and $34 at attractions. So who are these Norman visitors? 54% were between 25 and 54 years old. 43% have an average household income of over $100,000, and 43% have children in the household. So what can we draw from this? 60.9% of the visitors were from out-of-state markets, and a couple of the top visitor origin markets included Dallas, Tulsa, and Oklahoma City. It's interesting if we put this for the year. Last year, those change a little bit, but for that quarter, those were the top three. Out of the top 10 visitation markets, visitors from the Sherman-Ada market spent the most on average, $176 per cardholder. And then Wichita Falls and Lawton visitors placed second. This was one of the changes when you look at it for the year, but for the last quarter, they spent $146 per cardholder. You see there, visitors from Dallas visited the campus region 45% more often than the average visitor. To me, that is a lot of those students that are here and families that are coming, and you have fall or winter graduations and parents coming to visit. So those Dallas visitors are very affluent, with 66% having a household income of 100K or plus. Visitors from Oklahoma City go to our events webpage 95% more often than the average visitor, which is also interesting. We're in the process of going through a new website design, and we take all of this and way more into account as we do this. But Oklahoma City can drive for our events, and they're looking for things to do. So that makes a lot of sense. Oklahoma City also spends 24% more on retail, 7% more on outdoor recreation, and 6% more on food than the typical visitors. They're observed at University Town Center 68% more often. This makes sense too, as we've seen some of those placer numbers that show all the out of town spending that happens and traffic that goes to that UNP or University Town Center. So, and then visitors from Tulsa visited North Central Norman more and campus more. So a couple other notes to share. Denver, Colorado spends $188 on average, but they only account for 1.3% of the total visitations. So trying to get those Denver visitors here would be good. Sherman Ada, of course, we just talked about $176 spend. They're always way up there for some reason. And then Houston visitors represent 3.7% of visitation, and they spend about $150 on average.
What's the correlation with Ada? You know?
You know, we haven't figured that out. It is always there. I think there's probably not a whole lot to do down there, and so Norman's that closest.
I was gonna say, I was looking at similar data, and I think, you know, if you live in Dallas
Right.
or Denver, you have a lot of options to shop. You know, if you're coming in from a smaller metro in Oklahoma, you don't have the diverse shop. So us compared to them, like, we're the big city.
Right. I
Right.
guess if
So,
your choices are
that's-
Dallas or Norman, probably not gonna go down to Dallas and mess with all that.
Right, and we're catching a lot before, you know, we're the southern boundary of things to do.
Nothing against Shawnee and McAllister, but they don't have as much going on.
Yeah.
That's wrong.
Well, the owner of the deli is from Ada,
Okay.
and a whole lot of Ada people come to Campus Corner, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
It's-
That's interesting.
Jeremy Shockey's from Ada.
Okay.
You know, and I don't know, a lot of Ada folks end up coming to OU, or they come to Campus Corner to hang out, like ECU students.
Yeah.
So
Well, whatever it is, keep it up.
Yeah. So you'll see here lodging performance through in quarter four. Stay value was up 9% versus the previous year. STVR is that short-term vacation rental. So think VRBOs, Airbnbs. So those numbers are higher than hotel stay values as you're renting houses or other things. But that was up 5% versus the previous year. Length of stay at hotels was up 3%. Short-term vacation rentals was actually down slightly at 5%. You see occupancy was up 10% versus the same point last year. Average daily rate, that's ADR, was up 5% as well. And then demand for both was up, which is a good sign.
Well, I think those are all positive numbers, considering that we had 4 to 5 losses already on the record at that point in the season.
Yeah, that's
So-
right. I think for especially the main game,
Right.
that's a hard one to go to considering the performance of the team. You probably saw a lot more local, but yeah, so good numbers there, and I think attributed to things we've talked about with YFAC and
Absolutely.
Griffin and others. So here's our this is our one. I can't drill this down by quarter, and the way the software does it, no matter how I change my date range, it did not match up on the bottom there. So make a note there. The one on the left is occupancy by month. The navy line, the dark line is hotel. The lavender line is those Airbnb short-term vacation rentals. That's March through February. And then the average stay value by month, maybe it's because they can collect the data in a more timely fashion. I don't know why, but they give me the chart there of April through March. And so we can see, obviously, March has just started, but what we're seeing in March already. And so the average stay value there peaks in June and July for the short-term vacation rentals. For hotels, that stay value peaks during football season and then in spring here, or in the end of winter, early spring. So the where are visitors going by points of interest? We see here their high retail here in Norman, then food as well. So you see high food, of course, education's big, accommodations, and then a lot of outdoor rec as well. And then where are visitors spending their money? So what's interesting, over half of all visitors spending, which is significantly higher than average, is at food and beverage. The national average is about 40%. And so we're seeing 52.9% of that spend at food and beverage. Meanwhile, visitor spending at accommodations is $241 per visitor, and that's the highest average spend category, followed by retail and F&B. So it's good to see knowing where they're spending the money. That helps us as we're trying to market to them, and we try and bump up categories or market so they spend more at those restaurants. But then you see the average spend of $114. That's significantly higher than the national average within Zydeco, which is usually the $70 to $80 range. Always interesting to dig into that data, but kind of helps us look at our marketing opportunities. So our future marketing efforts will probably be focused on maximizing that out-of-state visitation, seeing how we can capture that. And nearly 61% of the visitors are not from the state of Oklahoma. So we continue to look at where are those top spenders coming from and how do we get more of them coming. Those visitors tend to have higher incomes and a high children in the household percentage. So affluent family persona, really targeting that family-friendly dynamic that we have. So simply put here, our retail drives visitation, our restaurants drive visitation. It's an opportunity for us to align that with our content creation. We know University of Oklahoma is our major driver, and so we'll continue to utilize those partnerships. And we just met with our reps at Sooner Sports Properties yesterday, as we know that's a market segment that we want to continue to capture and really hit. So.
Excellent. Councilman Reed.
Something that I wanted to bring up, and I think you and I might have touched on this a little bit, but our second item is becoming a pet-friendly city and using that. I wanted to see what it would look like if we started some sort of campaign about being the most grandparent-friendly city. I think with the Adult Wellness Center and our free museums and our public transport, and nobody else is really saying that they are.
Yeah.
So I didn't know if that would be something that we could maybe be a leader on and get with AARP and do all of the different things there, but
We have
really
not talked about that, but I love it.
I'm gonna pull my Miss Brenda Hall hat and say we're deviating from the topic on the agenda.
I just wanted to bring that up.
I'm glad you did. Let's move on to the next one. Councilmember Graham.
And also, I'll just say that will be on the agenda for oversight, aging in place, so.
Oh, there you go.
That should be included, absolutely.
Nice. Well, are there comments or questions from council? I appreciate you guys letting us get down on the weeds and some of the stuff, and it's kind of difficult to understand unless you're dealing with it every day, so appreciate answering our novice questions. So, thank you, guys. All right, item number 2 is a discussion regarding potentially becoming a pet-friendly city. And I'm not sure if this is just a discussion item, or if we actually have a presentation.
We do.
Okay, excellent.
It's short.
That's kind.
Where is it?
There's people. That's as far as close to the stadium as they can.
I'm gonna pass these out. These are the actual assessment that has to be done to, here, you can just pass them down, to become a pet-friendly city. I'm gonna be honest, I didn't know this existed until it was brought up and so I've had to do quite a bit of research to figure out what all is required. You'll see some of my handwriting in there. The pages are front and back, because I did some research as I was going through it to kind of get an idea of what numbers were easy for me to find and what numbers were not so easy for me to find. So that this requires, how do I move forward on this?
Just your little arrow there,
With the.
one of these little arrows right here, I think that.
The end button, okay. So to apply, they suggest that it is completed by someone within city government or a designated partner, which would be maybe a committee or a nonprofit. And then whoever completes the assessment needs to confirm that the mayor is aware and supportive of the pet-friendly initiatives in the city. So there's 12 different traits that are help determine whether or not the city is pet-friendly. It starts out with your shelters in your city. And so number 1 through 3 is based upon data and statistics that are gathered from your shelter. And it requires that the shelter partners and collaborates to end pet homelessness, that it's warm and welcoming to encourage adoption, and that there is a community cat program that humanely addresses cat overpopulation. We already hit all 3 of those at our shelter, at our city shelter. So that part was pretty simple. So the next 3 are relating to housing and homes in the city. They require that there are pet-friendly housing options that exist for all families and pets. In tough times, support exists to keep pets in homes. The animal welfare can address that number 2 part about the support to keep pets in homes, because we are a drop-off center for St. Francis Animal Resource Center, and we do a lot of work to try to keep pets with their families. And then also that the pet owners have support to make responsible choices for their pets. We kind of can insert ourselves in that part also, because we do a lot of support to our community to help people make responsible choices for their animals. 7 through 9 will center around parks. That the pet needs are considered in city and park and green space planning. That's gonna be waste dispensers, water fountains that are, pet height and accessible to the animals. Public pet amenities to support good health for all, which would also fall under that category of making sure that we have signage where things are available that pet owners might need when they're in our parks, and also signage about being a responsible pet owner, leashes and whatnot.
Do you know if we check those 3 boxes currently?
I do not know.
Saw Jason left, I was gonna ask him, but.
And that people know the expectations for pets in public places. I do know in our dog parks, we have that. I don't know about the other parks within the city. And then 10 through 12 is gonna revolve around our businesses. So we want to try to identify what businesses make it easy to be with your pet, how many restaurants we have that have pet-friendly patios, or other businesses that allow pets in the business. Traveling with dogs and cats is accessible and affordable. I would think with Norman, we would be focusing on Metro Transit, if they do allow animals on the city-owned transportation. And then that workplaces that know and support the benefits of pets at work.
Councilmember Grant.
I guess I can ask too. So what's how's Embark handle animals?
Yeah, we, or us and Embark require a carrier when you're on the bus for the animal, just because it is a shared ride. And that's basically the end of it. So we do allow pets, they just have to be in a carrier.
So we can check that box.
No matter how big the carrier is?
If it can't be blocking the aisle, just like a stroller or something like that. So yeah, that's something to take into account too. I would think, I mean, unless there's more criteria, I would say that covers that.
It'll be in the packets that I gave you guys, all of the questions are in there, so
I
I'm
guess
not.
I do have a question if it's like an elderly person, they're using paratransit, or we even have that, I don't know if there's vet stuff open in the evenings.
Yeah, Norman On Demand, I don't believe, we haven't had to cross that. I
Okay.
haven't had that question before. For paratransit, it's the same rule, in the carrier, I believe. Although they could request a reasonable accommodation, for the animal if they're not able to maybe accommodate or move around with the carrier or something, so that could be a possibility.
Okay.
We also have pets that are transported to and from the shelter by caravans a lot. And then we had a guy Uber to the shelter today to adopt a dog, so I think there's options.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we check all the questions on that particular page.
Yeah, but we can definitely dig into it more and make sure we answer all the questions.
So, this is just kind of what to expect with the assessment. They don't expect us to be perfect across all aspects of the model. But they do want to see evidence that the city is committed to pets and being pet friendly. Once the assessment is submitted, it's reviewed, and in about 1 to 2 weeks, you get contacted with any follow-up questions. It lasts for a 5-year period, and to be recertified, you have to update every 5 years. And so in the sections, that's what you guys have. It has about you, the basic information of the person, the city, how to contact the person, about the city, demographics, number of pets, and pet-friendly features. If you looked at those first pages where I actually got the numbers of how many pets are in homes, they give a calculation of how to determine an estimate of how many pets are in homes in your city. And then evaluation of the city based on the key traits. And they also require that we have priority projects or programs for the future of pets in our city, and that we're taking action on at least one pet-related priority. And this is just what we need to provide them. We'll need obviously animal welfare will have to be involved, the parks department, and maybe Chamber of Commerce to try to develop the numbers for the businesses and hotels and stuff like that. And it is dependent on self-reporting, so the numbers have to be accurate to the best of your ability. It doesn't have to be perfect, but if they have any questions, then they'll contact whoever is actually submitting the information. And that's all that I have. If anybody has any questions, I'll try to answer them. I dove as deep into this as I could, so I may not know everything, but I'll try.
I just have one real quick, and it's, do you know if there's any grant opportunities for animal welfare? If getting this designation, does that open up any additional funding opportunities for us, or?
No, it doesn't. There is nothing that I could find that we get by completing the assessment other than the certification. And they also have a lot of toolkits available for signage and stuff like that.
Well, that's helpful. Councilmember Graham.
Yes, thank you. That was me pushing this during council retreat last summer. So I appreciate you taking the time to start to fill out some of this. If we wanted to go forward, would it be animal welfare the most appropriate applicant for this certification, or should it go through a different?
Well, when it was first brought up to me, we talked about the Animal Welfare Oversight Committee possibly diving into it.
A good start.
Because it is more than animal welfare, so it's gonna need to be kind of a collaborative effort of groups of people.
And in the toolkits, like especially think about business, there are quite a few in Ward 4. I know there's even a gym, I think it's Ward 8, that is pet friendly. Would there be like signage for those businesses? Like part of the pet?
I believe
Friendly.
so, and if you want, I can look it up, or I can show you the toolkits if you guys want, or you can look on your own.
Okay, I'll take a look.
Yeah, it's on their website, all the toolkits are on there, you can look at them.
I mean, I think anytime we could take advantage of a certification to be Tree City USA, Film Friendly City, Pet Friendly, Grandparent Friendly, I mean, I think these are all opportunities we should take, just another way to market Norman. And
Tourism,
absolutely, I mean,
pet friendly city.
And we're
More
about
isn't.
to, I think, build the Joint Animal Welfare Oversight Committee. Like, that's not quite been created, or did we?
Oh,
get
it's
that done?
created.
We voted on it last.
Yes,
We're making
it,
It should come, it should be, 30 days should be about up, and
Then
if
we'll
they're still up
appoint-
and operating, they've all been.
yeah, we meet, and, well, we're supposed to meet this month, but we're not gonna have a quorum, so we'll meet next month.
Okay, and then we'll officially appoint people after the 30-day.
Right, I wasn't real sure how we were gonna do that since we'll only have, where are we, March, April, 3 months left, and the current mayor's.
Might wait till
Yeah,
July.
I didn't know if mayor-elect was going to be something that you would fill up these committees, but it's short, we're a little short, but
And I do have 2 pets.
you have 2 pets.
That was on the
That was
first
the
page.
first question.
Is the mayor pet?
Just a comment to commend the operations of the animal welfare. I think this is a great initiative to have for the city. I think we operate in that manner anyway. Maybe a week or two, like, right, last week, I was driving home in that turn before you get to Flood, you make the right on Flood, I think, to go towards 7-Eleven. Beautiful dog jumped at me, jumped out in front of my car. I almost hit it, but thank God my reflexes are great, so I stopped, and then I saw the dog just kind of frantically running in the street, but there were cars behind me, so I'm like, oh my God, don't want the dog to die. So I opened my car door to try and get the dog, but before I even jumped out the car, the dog jumped in my car, which was beautiful.
Be careful, Shakira.
He jumped in my car, he had a collar on, he was beautiful, his coat was clean, but you could feel his ribs, so you could tell he was wandering for a little while looking for his family. And it was after 5 that I left the office, so I was worried that animal welfare was not open, and I would have to adopt the dog for the weekend. Thankfully, they were open, they answered. I said, hey, I'm the city auditor, can you, just pick up this dog off the street, can you please come get him? And 10 to 15 minutes later, I had an animal welfare officer come take the dog, and the next day I got a report that he was returned to his family. So, they're rock stars.
They are.
thank you for taking the time to do that. I mean, most people wouldn't even
I
do
will
that.
say that
So,
again.
that's awesome.
He was a pretty dog.
He was very beautiful, he was very.
Somebody was missing him, huh?
He could have been my second dog, but I knew he had a family, so.
So I would say for direction, push it towards that Animal Welfare Oversight Committee and expect maybe them to pick it up in July or after.
I can bring it up at the April meeting, just to
If
kind
they
of
wanna
put it
start
back in.
working on it before then, I would be happy if they wanted to.
You're
I'll put it
motivated
on the
group.
agenda.
Yeah, we're low on members right now.
Excellent. All positive stuff. Was there anything else from council?
Thank you, Kelly.
Yeah,
If not,
thanks, Kelly.
this meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.
That one lady's been trying to get on
Tell me
the.
twice, I got
work
some
on the
questions.
wall.
I have to get you.
Hey, you can come
Do we
tell a
have a-
feel-good story anytime